Hey everyone, it's Jamie Jo Wright here at Madlit Musings, and today I have with us Roseanna White. Dun dun dun.
Can I get you to always introduce me like that?
I will always introduce you like that. It's
Okay.
Roseanna White. Dun dun dun. That's the hardest thing when you have a podcast is trying to like energetically introduce authors when you feel like you're doing it the same way every single time. So you try and
Yes.
make it memorable and then it just comes out really weird.
Hey, weird can be memorable.
Weird
Just
can be memorable. This is true.
lean into it. Go for weird.
All right, we're going to lean into it. Leaning. So, okay, this is cool because you are my publishing house sister. Those are air quotes for people that aren't seeing my fingers if they're listening on Spotify or Apple, iTunes, etc. But you're from Bethany House Publishers and you've written way more books than I have. Um, which I think, what are you at now for a total?
I'm somewhere in the 30s. I keep losing track because I have finished some, so I count those on one hand, but then they're not out yet. So
Right,
it's somewhere in the mid 30s.
mid 30s.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to try and catch up. I just want to say that right now. It's not happening. Oh, fun. But with Bethany House, you write a lot of historical romance, and with elements of suspense usually tied in. Probably stronger on romance, though, correct?
I would consider them more historical romance, but there's always something suspenseful in there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've got readers who are like, "Ooh, she writes suspense," and I'm like, "Does she know she writes suspense?"
She's pretty sure she doesn't, but there has to be a little bit in there, but I don't think it meets the strict definitions.
Oh man, but you have a lot of avid readers who adore your stories, which is awesome. And you have a new book coming out August 22nd called A Beautiful Disguise, and it's book one of
Mhm.
what, a trilogy?
Yes, yes, a
Okay.
new series.
All right. So I'm going to do the proverbial question that all authors struggle with. What's your book about?
All right. Well, the series concept is that we have an upper class set of siblings, Lady Marigold, who is our first heroine, and her brother Yates. And they discovered when their father died 5 years before the series begins that they have no money left because he wasted it all on entertainments. So they have to make a living. And without letting society know that their estates are on the brink of bankruptcy. So they start a private investigative firm that they call the Imposters, and they basically are spying on the elite, solving their problems for them with no one knowing who it is. So they think it's actors or something, and they're using the skills they learned from all these entertainers that took up all their money, basically. So they, are using memorization they learned from actors and acrobatics that they learned from the circus troupe, and all of this in order to support themselves and the circus family that retired to their estate. So it's super fun. It's full of hijinks and all of that. So the first book, A Beautiful Disguise, does focus on Lady Marigold, who is a fashion icon. She wears haute couture, which it was at its beginnings in that era.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically chooses fashions that are just so in your face, no one pays attention to her face. They're too busy looking at her hat or her
Sure.
gown.
Mm-hmm.
So then her best friend can pose as her when she's off doing investigative work just by wearing the hat and appearing at a place. So suddenly Lady M was there because her hat was there.
Her hat was there.
So yep. So she has created this persona to be her disguise. But she's then struggling with no one actually knows me, and I did that on purpose, but I also kind of regret it. So
That
all
is
the
so
fun stuff.
fun. That is
Yeah.
so fun. I love that. And so we have it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Miss Scarlet and the Duke meets, and I can't think of what it's called, but it's part of the whole Bridgerton thing where there's that woman undercover that keeps putting out these gossip things, but nobody knows who
Right. The
writes
gossip
them.
columns. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
that sounds super fun. And then you have this part obviously interests me because now we're getting a little bit more suspicious. But you've got Merritt Livingston, who is in the War Office Intelligence. So they're starting an
Yeah. So
intelligence
in
branch.
1909, they decided that England needed to up their intelligence game because everyone else was miles ahead of them. So they decided to combine the police intelligence, the army intelligence, and the navy intelligence into a new branch that became MI5. So this is like the intelligence 1909, right? This is when it all
MI5. I didn't even know there was an MI5.
There is an MI5 that is the domestic version of MI6, which is like it's
International.
like FBI and CIA sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah. My
So yeah,
gosh.
that was created at that time, and I was like, all right, well, let's just put a hero there. So I have him at, he's a Coldstream Guard, which is the elite of elite military. They're the ones who guard the palace.
Okay.
So we think of it just as, the changing of the guard, but really they get that position when they have proven that they are the best of the best. So these are like Navy SEALs guarding the palace, right? Like we don't think about that.
No, I
But
kind
that's
of
who
think
they
of them as like toy soldiers. I mean, it sounds horrible to say, but they're like tourist
are,
attractions.
right? But no, you don't get that. You're the last line of defense for the monarch. So you are like the best of the best, which is hilarious because we just don't think of it that way.
No, we
But so
don't.
he's one of those, but he got pneumonia. So he got removed from the field, put
Okay.
in a desk job, and
Mm.
that's where he ends up. And so, of course, he then picks up on some suspicious activity and he's trying to root it out and figure out what's going on, but he's still sick. So he calls on the imposters to help him.
Oh,
So that's how we meet. It's really
that's
fun.
too fun. That's too fun.
It's very fun.
But and now after learning all that, I kind of want to go to England and stand in front of one of those soldiers and be like, I know you can't smile, but I do know that you could snap my neck in 0.5 seconds and just see if I could get him to at least flinch.
You have to get a sparkle in the eye anyway. They'd be like, oh yeah.
And they're like, thank you for appreciating my hidden talents. I'm more than this fuzzy black hat.
Very much more.
That's so cool. I didn't realize there was, I guess I'm just dumb. I didn't realize there was an MI5. You hear MI6 in all the movies, I think. So
Yeah, because that's what James Bond was. And
yeah,
so that's what
exactly.
we especially as Americans, what we hear about.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But MI5. And this, so it started in, right, really pre-World War One then.
yeah, 1909. So there was a huge spy mania at the time where everyone was convinced that the Germans were going to invade. They were spying on them. There were a lot of German waiters and stuff at the time. So every German waiter or cabbie, everyone was convinced was out to get them. So there was just this
Wow.
huge spy mania. And it was all because of a novelist. I
What?
Yeah, there was this novelist named William LeQue who wrote all these best-selling novels, like called, the Spies of the Kaiser and all this stuff, and they were all about Germany invading England. And they were so convincing that everyone really thought that this was what was happening and that he had inside knowledge.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
they published his book in serial form a lot in the
Yeah.
newspaper. And so the newspapers would use this as a draw for,
Yeah.
publicity. So they would deliberately name the places with the best-selling like news articles and stuff as this is where they're coming. So they'd sell more papers. And it was
Oh
just
my gosh.
hilarious. So the power of fiction, right? Like, but it got so out of hand that all these different government agencies were constantly fielding phone calls and letters from concerned citizens who wanted to report this suspicious activity. And they were like, we need something to handle all of this. So
Oh
that's why
my
they created this whole
gosh.
agency. Yeah, so it's totally hilarious. And the really funny thing is, it got to the point where the novelist thought he knew more than the government did too, and he was offering them advice. And I'm like, dude, you've made it all up.
No. Oh my goodness. That's when you know it's really gone to your head as a writer.
Yeah,
Here,
yeah.
government, let
So
me tell you how to protect our nation.
right, yeah, yeah.
Wow. So then the question, if we really want to go conspiracy theorist on this, is would World War One have ever started without this fiction author?
Right, right.
Wow.
This
Look at
this
the
may
power
come up
we
a bit
wield.
in my book.
Oh, is it really?
A little bit, a little hint of it.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm like, yeah, I need this book now because that's too fun. I love that. Wow, that is so cool. I love that and that's one of the things that's really fun with your books is you come up with these historical elements in your stories that are not necessarily the paper cut, not the word, paper cutter, cut and paper,
Cookie cutter.
whatever, cookie cutter. I'm like mixing my things. Okay, cookie cutter. Yeah, they're not cookie cutter or paper cuts. Either one. They don't hurt and they're not run of the mill.
Right, but they are delicious.
They are.
Yeah.
All right, well, that digressed and my point has been lost. But anyway, you write great stories.
Thank you.
Oh, too much fun. Okay, so this is book one, and then you've got two more coming out.
Mhm.
Are they coming out relatively quickly, or do we have to wait like a year between each book? Or
No, there's 6 to 9 months.
okay,
So the second one I turned in January, so it should come out the next January.
mhm,
Was it January? It might have been March. I used to be like on this strict schedule, and they
right.
just got pushed a little bit. So the next one will come out the following spring,
Okay,
and then the following one, the third one will come out September.
okay, perfect.
Yeah,
So it's always nice when you have those types of storylines where you're wanting to really keep up with the characters, and you don't have to wait like for 3 years to get the full
yeah.
thing. But
And
yours are
my series
also,
are always the sort of standalones where,
yeah,
Lady Marigold is book one, and her best friend Gemma is book two, and her brother Yates is book three. So we have
okay,
three separate couples we get to follow because it's all romance. But yeah, but there will be the
that's
the
fun.
continuing threads too.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, with A Beautiful Disguise, we've got a really interesting story and all of that, but you're also a Christian author, so you like to wave in. Wow, my words are not working today. You're waving at your book as you write it. You like to weave in faith elements and such. So, when you wrote A Beautiful Imposter, did you have something specific in mind, or were you just incorporating faith as a whole in the story?
In this case, both of my main characters are believers already, so it's more about deepening faith. And a theme I come back to a lot is knowing your true identity, which you can only know through Christ.
Mm,
So, with somebody who her disguise is so central to who she is, she really has to sort out where the disguise ends and why she chose the one she did, and where the true Marigold begins, and how to be vulnerable and who to
mhm,
let in. And these are things that I think we all deal with
yeah.
today. I mean, especially in this world of social media where we
Hmm.
choose our mask and we wear it. And,
Yes.
which one did we choose? And why is that what we decide to portray?
Hmm.
How often do we get lost behind the mask or see other people's mask and think it's really them?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
just 100 years ago, it may have looked a little different, but it's something that I think people have always had to deal with. So on that, we had that on one side, on her side, and Sir Merritt is dealing with a lot of questions of nobility, and he received a knighthood actually rescuing missionaries in the Boxer Rebellion in China. So he is still a good friend with a missionary, and has um, his advice always ringing in his head, but is also trying to find his own place here and seek the noble, seek the good, but do it in a way that is, honoring God and family
Hmm.
and nation and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And that's always one of those things too when you involve spies and faith. It's always that interesting conundrum too of where's the line and all that
Yeah,
with deceit
right.
and
Yeah, it's and that's yeah, Marigold and her brother Yates are always very much like, we're searching for truth. That's what we're doing. We're trying to find the truth for people. Sometimes it's ugly,
yeah,
but it's still the truth.
right.
Um, and at one point, her brother Yates says, "The truth may not always be pretty, but I like to think it's always beautiful." And she's like, "Should I stitch that on a sampler for you?" And yeah, please do. So
You
yeah,
should
but they're
actually
they're
get
very aware of the dilemma and try
right.
to keep that in mind at all times.
Yeah, exactly. That should be a fan t-shirt that you make. I put that on a t-shirt. That'd be a great slogan. I'd wear
Well, I
it.
do sell T-shirts that tie in
I
with my
know.
book,
Oh,
so
I
now we
know.
know which one to do for this one.
There we go. We got it. We got it. I love that. But yeah, it's interesting when you think about faith and identity. And that, in this situation it's back in 1909 and it's with spies and all of that. But then today we have, like you said, social media and such. And one of the things that I think is I don't want to say funny, but it's interesting when you talk to people who have been on social media for a long time and they've adopted a specific identity, then it's the trial of having to maintain
Yeah,
that identity. And I know before we went on and we started to record, you were talking about how Marigold does a few things that kind of help her create an identity, and then she has to maintain it.
right.
Yes, yes, and how exhausting that can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you think, okay, let me ask this question. I'll pick your brain. Why do you think we as individuals, especially within our faith and our spirituality, pick a specific identity that we think other people want us to have versus being who God has created us to be?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we have this idea that especially once we are Christians, we need to be perfect
Mm,
because we're told to be perfect. But
mhm.
we fail to realize that part of our perfection is our imperfection, that it's God being perfect through us, not
Right.
us being
Right.
perfect. And it's especially a problem in Western culture, honestly. In Europe and in America, we put this emphasis on how we look
Mhm.
and maintaining this facade and not letting people see our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses. And this is not the case in a lot of other countries. We have friends who were missionaries in Bulgaria, and they said in these communities, they worked in the gypsy communities. They're like, there are no secrets.
Mm,
Everyone knows your faults. Everyone knows your flaws. You don't try to hide them because there's no point in trying to hide them. And because of that, they have a very authentic faith because
mm.
there's no trying to show people that I'm better than I really am. You just are who you are. And it's like, whenever they told me about that, I was like, man, like I really admire this.
Yeah.
Even as I recognize that I'm not going to get on social media and complain every time I have a headache. I'm not going to get on social media and complain every time I have a disagreement with someone. Like, that's not who I want to be.
Right.
So I think a lot of who we choose to show the world is who we want to be.
Mm,
But the difference between who we want to be and who we really are can be very burdensome.
yeah.
And I think that's what we all struggle with is, and we joke that we as authors would love to be millionaires with
Oh,
living on the
right.
mansion on the hill, right? But
Hmm.
we're not. And we have
No.
this image in our head of what the ideal would be. And that goes for all parts of life. We have an image of what perfect parenthood would be,
Right.
or what perfect spousal relationship is, or what a perfect neighbor relationship is. And reality never, never matches what we want it to be. And that just leaves us with all of these things to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so true. And you think about the concept of being more transparent with your, not necessarily with your life, but just even your secret, the things that we struggle with and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It seems almost ridiculous to be transparent with it, even within the Christian or church community. Like, we're supposed to lean on
Sometimes
one another.
especially within,
Yeah.
you find problems. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
then,
I think that just makes the problem worse. Then you're less
right.
authentic and less authentic. And
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I had a Sunday school teacher when I was in, I think I was middle school. Maybe it was high school. But anyway, he'd be walking down the hall. You know how you pass people in church and he would, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine. And if you ever answered, I'm fine, he would stop and he'd look at you and go, okay, I asked you, how are you? I would like an authentic answer. If you are truly fine, say it like you mean it. Otherwise, tell me how I can pray for you. And I was like, I mean, as a middle schooler, you're like, you're a scary man. You're a very scary man. But as an adult, I look back and I'm like, wow, I don't really ask that question with the intent of really getting an honest answer.
Right. Yeah. And if you give an honest answer, people don't know what to do with it. Like,
No. What?
my husband tried that at church a couple of years ago. Someone said, "Oh, how's business going?" He went, "Actually really bad." And they went, "Oh," and walked away. And it was like, you could have asked me what's wrong, how you can pray
Oh,
for me. They just don't know how to deal
no.
with
No.
authentic answers a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right. And we've come up with these pat expected answers to those questions as a
Hmm.
facade,
Yeah,
really, to
exactly.
cover. Yeah, yeah. And then you do get that one person you ask, and then not only do they answer your question, but you learn everything about them from the moment they were born to the moment that they're standing in front of you. And you're like, well, that's more than I asked. That's more than I
Yes, yes.
asked.
Finding a balance is always great.
This is true. This is true. So, how do you think grace plays into the concept then of identity? And when, okay, so you and I meet in the hallway at church, you ask me how I am, and I say, you know what, right now, I'm really struggling with some things, and it's not a really great time in my life. Where does grace and kindness and care come into play as the person who's hearing that? What do we do to help, or do we help?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is where empathy is such a huge thing where, we are called to grieve when our brothers and sisters in Christ are grieving. We're called to rejoice when they're rejoicing. And both of these things can be hard when we're not in the same season.
Yeah.
So I think one of the challenges that I think we all need to kind of embrace is realizing that we're called to walk where they're walking.
Mm,
in that moment. If somebody is authentic with you, you need to be authentic with them.
yeah.
And you need to say, oh, you know what? Maybe you've been there, maybe you haven't. If you have, you can just say, I totally get it. Let me pray with you. Let me pray for you. How can I pray for you?
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just enough to see them.
Yeah.
I actually was writing on this. The blog is not out as of when we're doing this. But that sometimes just being seen is all it takes to make someone feel better. And I used a story from when I was in grade school and I was sick one day. And rather than playing at recess, I sat at my desk and put my head down. And my teacher's like, honey, what's wrong? And touched my forehead. She's like, oh man, you have a fever. You need to go call your mom. And I called my mom and she's like, what's wrong? And I just started crying. And it's not like it was
Oh,
that big a deal, right? Like it was just the flu.
right.
I got better in a few days. But having that teacher see me and having my
Mhm.
mother see me and come and get me was all it took to just break through the walls of you have to suck it up and be good
Right.
and realize I can just be who
Yeah.
I am and in the place I am right now. And I'm going to be loved for it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be loved through it. And I think that's what we all need
Mm,
in all moments of life. So if someone says, I'm really having a hard day, maybe you just give them a hug and you
yeah.
say, I am so sorry you're going through this right now. How can I help? Or if I can't help, just know I'm here. I'm right here. And that is often all we need. Like I
Yeah.
know, speaking personally, I'm not expecting anyone to solve my problems. I just need people to recognize that I'm having one. And that's all.
That's actually really profound though, because we're talking about when somebody actually answers the question of how are you and they answer it honestly, there's that awkwardness potential. But then I think we're also in a culture where we feel we need to fix things.
Yeah.
And so if we can't fix, then we're suddenly awkward. And there's that middle ground that's completely lost, which is the wow, let me pray with you or let me hug you or just know, hey, I'm here if you need me to go grocery shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I like that. Well, now I'm going to start asking that question and then holding my breath to see what honest answers I get. If I get any. I don't know. Hey, everybody listening, if people ask you how you are with tact and patience, answer honestly. Let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's start making that a practice. I think that's good. Okay, so we've kind of gone off the road a little bit from spies to being caring and empathetic people with hidden
Totally
identities.
relevant to the
It's
story. It
completely
fits. I
relevant.
promise it fits.
This was so planned by Roseanna, this deep, deep, deep thought process that now you're going to get emails when they read the book going, oh, I totally see what you mean. You're really like, really? I didn't, but thank you.
Yep. Yep. Hey, sometimes God puts messages in what we write just for that one person. We didn't know it was there.
This
That's
is
okay.
true. This is
That's
true.
the beauty of art.
It is. It really is. And I do love that about fiction too, because there are times that people will draw something from it and you're like, oh, well, that's awesome. I didn't know God had that little nugget in there, but that's great.
Yep. There was a quote in an interview with a screenwriter,
Yeah.
and someone said, is this? And he went, no, but that's much better. It is now. Now that's what I was
That's
like, I
perfect.
love it.
I love that. Yep, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so your book releases A Beautiful Disguise. It's book one in the Imposters trilogy. It releases August of 2023. And you also have quite the website. This is not a place to just breeze through. So tell readers how to get in contact with you, what you offer. There's just a lot of stuff that you offer readers.
Yeah, so my thing is that my website is my world and I want you to enjoy it with me. So if you go to my website, you'll get the normal things like sign up for my newsletter. I do send out a weekly newsletter. You'll get all my blogs, some exclusive newsletter content, the opportunity to get sneak peeks of all my books. I send the first 30 pages out prior to release. But I also have a shop where you can buy signed books. You can buy tie-in merchandise. I do have t-shirts for all my books. Well, not all of them, but many of my books that have fun quotes from the book on them, or just tie-in stuff. I have jewelry that goes along with the books. Lots of super fun things. Because yeah, in our family, a big joke is every time you hear a good one-liner, we say t-shirt. So
Yes.
naturally, this eventually actually resulted in t-shirts, tote bags, all this stuff. I've also started doing landing pages for all my books. The one for the imposters was actually the first one I came up with. So it's a work in progress right now. By the time the book releases, it should hopefully be in its full form. So if you go to roseannamwhite.com/imposters, it will deliver you to this page where there is Lady M's fabulous and frugal fashion column, and some history of spies and history of the theater. And one of my characters is an architect, so he's going to take you on a tour through the neighborhood and show you all the cool manor houses and all that fun stuff. So you'll get to meet the characters. I did character photos, and you can, see them and see what they look like. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's kind of what my website is all about, is to draw you into my world where I will never let you go.
That's fine. I like that. And I'm looking at your t-shirts right now, and yeah, you've got some fun quotes on here. Overthinkers Anonymous. That's a good one. I like that. And a beach in a book. There's a lot of people that will relate to that. So
yeah, you've got some fun ones on here. I like it.
And some of them are just generally bookish, and some of them are specific to my novels, but try to have a little something for everyone.
You have a woof t-shirt. Is that for dog lovers?
It's actually, well, I have some people ordering it for that, but on Wings of Devotion, the Code Breakers, she says, "I don't need a guard dog," and he says wolf. And throughout the book, every time he's following her and she's trying to dismiss him, he says wolf. So that's
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And if you read the description of it, says, "Wear the love forever. Cool people will understand, or else you'll get to explain it to them." So you're cool, and you just got to explain it. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Oh, so yeah, everybody wants to go to roseannamwhite.com and plan some time, because you're going to spend some time on that website for sure.
Yes, you will.
Awesome. Roseanna, this has been a blast having you. Thank you so much.
It's been so much fun being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have you back when we get to talk about more fun, spy-ish, romance, historical thingies.
I am happy to come back anytime. And as my fun little bio says, spies and war always make their way into my books. So always fun things to talk about.
Sounds good to me. Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.